Do video games cause violence? Over the next 5 minutes, Billy, Ashley, Ben, and Jason will answer that question.
Many health professionals believe that these games inspired several of our nation's mass killers. These three young men all reportedly spent hours playing video games each day in their basement. James Holmes, accused of gunning down 12 people at a Colorado movie theater. Jared Lochner pleaded guilty to killing 6 people and injuring former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords at an Arizona event. And finally, Adam Lanza, the gunman who killed 26 children and teachers in Newtown.
You look at all the people who play violent video games, such a vast minority, and troubled people end up doing terrible things. Well, yes, but that's true of any drug, and these are drugs. Yes, some people can use cocaine and just have bad judgment. Other people get addicted, and still others become violent on drugs. This is a drug.
The people from Fox News claim that video games desensitize youth to violence. Some say that violent video games are a large part of the problem of recent shootings and other violent crimes. Yet, as the reporters themselves said, these people were mentally ill. We can't blame violent games for what is already an existing problem in some youth. Video games aren't the underlying problem. They're simply being used as a scapegoat for other deeper issues. Some argue that video games do not in fact cause violence. According to a study by Ferguson and Olson, video games do not instigate violence in youth. Their study was performed on 377 children aged on average 13. They believe that if children are going to be violent, video games will not be the decisive factor. Video games may just give them ideas on how to be violent. From their studies, Ferguson and Olson concluded that video games do not relate to the increase in children bullying other children. They believe that other problems like family and mental issues are the real source of childhood bullying. Others believe video games do partially cause violence. Craig Anderson, a professor of psychology, claims that video games are one factor of youth aggression and violence, but not the main cause. Brad Bushman explains that after each new shooting, people want to point the blame at video games, but it's not that simple. He goes on to say, violent behavior is complex and caused by multiple risk factors. Video games are just one small factor in a large equation. Like in the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, many people started to look for reasons as to why the shooting happened. Most people defaulted to blaming video games because they were so graphic and show gruesome acts of violence. In light of our research, our group has come to the decision that we do not think video games cause violence. There just isn't enough evidence to support the viewpoint that video games are the root problem for children who lash out at others. While we all did agree that video games can cause some aggression in certain children by giving them ideas on how to commit acts of violence, we do not believe that the video game developers are at fault for this. Instead, mental disabilities, being bullied, and unstable home lives have much greater influence on people who participate in school shootings and other violent acts. Think about most people you know who play video games. Your brothers, your boyfriend or husband, classmates, and friends. Are these the type of people who are killers? No. They are average, everyday people who occasionally like to play a game of Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto. Violent games do not spawn violent people. They are simply something that factor into the violent acts and thoughts of someone who is already willing to hurt, injure, and even kill people. Perhaps people who already have deeply seated issues and mental illnesses could do without violent video games. That is far from the real problem.